But I am going to leave you with this thought. The hackers don't even know AOL exists anymore.
Right.
So I haven't been hacked in 20 years. So take that, everybody. Hey, thanks, everybody.
See you, Coach.
See you guys.
All right, we're going to go directly to Coach Neighbors. I'm going to let him talk about his coaching stops. One thing that was brought up is he was brought up by Buzz Williams on his TABC clinic and said he's the best clinician he's ever seen. And then I was talking to other high school guys, and they're like, Mike Neighbors, Mike Neighbors, Mike Neighbors. Now, I've always gotten your email, Coach, when you were at Washington and things of that nature. But I've been studying you. You do an unbelievable job, but you bring a lot to the table, like Coach Eastman was saying. We really appreciate that. You started at the high school level, which is really cool for us and be able to relate to that. So we're excited to hear what you had to say, and thank you for taking time to share with us.
Sure. I'll start with questions. That's one thing I've started doing on some of these because most of y'all got up at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock to get on these things, and there was probably something particular in your mind. I do have a PowerPoint to share with you, go over some things, but I certainly want to make sure if anybody's got a question, we get those things first. It can be about anything, but what Kyle mentioned is, yes, I did start as a high school coach and was some of the best years of my life, some of the most enjoyable coaching moments. But I had a daughter that was, I knew from the day that she was born was not going to, I wasn't going to be able to pay for her wedding coaching at Bentonville High School back in the day. So I jumped into the college coaching and moved around that way. But I have sat in pretty much every chair now from seventh grade boys basketball coach to assistant high school boys to head girls basketball to every chair on the bench. Started with Gary Blair, another Texas A&M guy down there. Is everybody Texas, Kyle, or do you know? Ish, close, pretty much.
We have some Oklahoma guys, so I would think some Texoma guys. So
good, Texoma area, good. We're obviously hitting Oklahoma really hard right now. Our three of our last 5 commits have come from over there. So anybody that's local, any questions, any good players, obviously send them my way. But when I hear Buzz Williams say things like that, it means we're doing it the right way, and you will get to be friends with. If you spend 1 second with Buzz Williams, you're his friend. So happy to share anything. But if there's anybody got any questions before we delve into what I did have prepared, I'd love to take those at the first rather than at the end. Anything in there, Kyle? Or
no, sir, nothing in the chat. So
nothing in the chat. All right. We will roll on, man. I will, I asked Kyle last night if he wanted to do anything specific. I've spoken with Kevin, and before and after, he's a very hard person to follow. I always feel like the opening act going on after the main event, but I'll do my best to give you some things. This is a little bit along the same lines, but if you need anything basketball-wise, if you want to see transition drills, you want to see shooting drills, those are all on YouTube. You can find those free. Just go to our YouTube channel. It's Razorback Women's Basketball. Search it. My assistant coach has done a tremendous job of building that into a library of our practices, our practice drills. They're diagrammed out. There's links to video, and there's a lot of video on there. So that's why sometimes when we do get an opportunity to do a Zoom like this, our topics become more like Coach Eastman's. I think I wrote down 3 or 4 nuggets. I will coattail off of what the question you asked a little bit, Kyle. I think all coaches organize themselves differently. But the one characteristic I will tell you about anybody that's worth a damn, they are organized in some shape, form, or fashion. I am a piler, not a filer. I have piles around on my desk everywhere. I have note cards with little tabs on it. That's my to-do list. There you are, Kyle, right there. Make sure I found you on Twitter. I've got a pile here, a pile here. We're in a temp house right now, so we're having some flood repair done, but you'll see 10 or 12 files over here. I've really become fascinated with these little lock boxes. I'm trying to get them in all sizes, but before COVID hit, we had really cool little note cards, but now that we're saving money. I've cut back and just gone to the really cheap ones you can find at any supply store. And then the book he talked about, he called his Wilt book. Mine looks like this. If you've been to TABC, I usually pass this thing around if we're live. But it's things the best of the best have said. And in my journal, what he said today was earn the ask. I had never heard it said like that, but that happens a lot to me too. So I'm obviously going to steal that from Coach. Some days I'm more creative than others. This is how I take notes. I think note-taking looks like that, not what y'all are, obviously write it down as you go, but turn it into something like this. I think it makes them more memorable. I love a good Venn diagram. These are upside down. I always forget. Anything that you can make. How is that not upside down? That's so bizarre. Anyway, that's my Wilt book. That's where I keep up with things, ideas. I've got legal pads where he brought his out. These are all different ideas, things we're doing. But ultimately it comes down, I've got 2 files on my desk every day. In the middle of my desk, I have the important and the urgent. And it's very important that you know the difference between the two. Which one goes in the urgent file and which one goes in the important file. The urgent things are things that have a time limit, that have an expiration date, that if you don't get done, the importance not there. The important things are all things that eventually need to be done, but without a timetable. The urgent have a timetable. Anything that comes across my desk immediately goes into one of those 2 piles. If at the end of the day, there is something that then there's 4 piles at 4 corners of my desk at the office. So you get 4 areas. Usually my desk has got piles everywhere, but there's the 4 corners are all saved for. Over here is my family and my friends, things that happen in life. Over here in the top left, that's the most important file that I have. Over here on the top right is my current team, my future team. So that's the Arkansas Razorbacks and our future recruits over here in the top right. Very, very important. Bottom left here is where things go. I'm an avid collector. I'm an avid lister. And I'm an avid pop culture guy. So those things go over here. Those are the 3 buckets that kind of fill me and make my job fun. My family, my basketball team, and then my fun over here. And then over here to my bottom right, I can reach and get with my right hand is that important file. And at the end of the day, I don't leave until the urgent things are done. And if they're not done, then I don't leave. You eat till you work till you're hungry, you work till you're tired, then you work till that urgent file is done. And it may go into that important file, and it's right there at the bottom right of my desk every single day I go in. All the other piles are miscellaneous, and they do have value or they wouldn't be there. If something comes across the desk that stays in the important file until it gets done. But if it's at the end of the day, not in that important file, it goes in the trash. And I think it took me a long time to learn what has to go into the trash. You can't do everything. You can't get everything done by midnight. Learned that the hard way as a first-time head coach. You're not going to get everything done in one day, so you've got to know your nose. That Kevin used his terminology for that. Ours is urgent and what's important. So that's the filing system, the organization system. I think you've got to do everything you can do to manage your priorities. That was something I learned during the COVID. We'd always use the word time management. And I, in fact, wrote a little piece on, time management for coaches, because it's different than the time management books you read at Barnes & Noble or you buy on Amazon. Those time management books are usually written by somebody in the business world, and their life's just different than ours as basketball coaches. So we do all have the same amount of it. It is the same exhaustible 24 hours, and how we use it and how we organize it is all about organizing what's priority to you. So some of that will come up in a few minutes as we get going, but I do feel if you research and you go spend time with specifically coaches, they've got a plan for their organization. They're all different. They'll all use different terminologies, but boy, if you were to break it down, I think you get about 2 or 3 categories. You get people like me and Kevin who are pilers, and Buzz Williams is a filer. His stuff all goes into a really, really neat. His desk would be clean if you walked into it, and he could find it like that. My desk is equally is the exact opposite. But my administrative assistant, she will marvel. I will be on the road recruiting and will say, "Hey, Christy, go sit down at my desk like you're facing the wall, the TV. And the third pile from the left, about 2/3 of the way down, you're going to see this yellow sheet of paper." And she'll walk in there and she'll go, "That is a little bit scary." But that's how you compartmentalize things in your brain and how you retrieve information. And you can spend a full year studying the brain like I did and learn why if you want to. But otherwise, just take my word for it that your brain operates in a filing system. So when you study all the leaders at any shape, form, or fashion, whether it's a executive at Tyson's or Buzz Williams' office, if anybody's close to College Station and you haven't spent any time in Buzz's office, you got to go take a look at it. It's one of the most – if I could be locked away, there's about 3 places I'd like to be locked away. I'd like to be in the Library of Congress where you can get your hands on that President's Book of Secrets, according to the TV show National Treasure. I'm not sure if it's really there or not. And I'd like to spend some time in the Vatican. I'm not Catholic, but I would love to spend some time in the Vatican Library to read all the things that I know are stowed there. And then I'd like to go to Buzz Williams' office for a day and just be left alone. But take advantage of those resources, find a way to get organized, and find a way to go. So I saw a couple other people jump on here. Kyle, I'll give you one more chance to take questions before I get rolling, in case somebody came for something specific. Like I said, otherwise you can go to the webpage or our YouTube. Find most anything that we do. All right, I'm going to share the screen real quick. Let me make sure I get this up. Let me know when you can see it. Maybe I didn't open it. There we go.
Laura, can you come here for a sec?
Can you see that screen now? Somebody give me a thumbs up. Yeah, okay. So this is going to take off a little bit, like I said, on some things that Coach Eastman talked about. 11 years ago, I was challenged by somebody about reading, and I had always heard that leaders are readers. I was an assistant coach, had been an assistant coach at that point in time for about 10 years, applied for a few jobs that I thought I should have gotten. I didn't. Almost got out of coaching to sell drugs and the legal kind, of course. Don't misquote me on that. But really contemplated a serious career change because some of the things I had thought I had been working for and earning along the way weren't coming my way. So I had reached a point of bitterness, and I did. I was a day away from getting out of coaching, but a friend of mine talked me into staying. Went to Washington with Kevin McGuff, who I've been working with at Xavier. Some of this, you'll get part of my bio as we talk through this, but I'm not big about introductions and reading that. You can look that stuff up for yourself. But I was not a reader, and I kept hearing all these people, readers are leaders, leaders are readers, all these different topics. And I wasn't one. So I thought, what the heck, I'm going to just try. And one of the first quotes I came across, at that point in time, I didn't realize that Mark Twain would become one of my top 3 or 4 quote engines, but he had this quote hit me, and it hit me right between the eyes and a little bit deeper into the heart. A person who won't read has no advantage over one who can't. So I was a poor reader. I had learned to read by sight. I started elementary school in 1976. So most of y'all probably don't even remember that year, or you think of it as being the old days, but we didn't learn phonics during those years here in Arkansas. They taught us, they were trying a new system out by read by sight, and it just became a memorization of words, and they hoped you would figure the words out as you went. Well, that really set our class back in reading. I go back and I talk to kids at that age, and we all struggled in that area, and I'm going to blame the public school system for that reason. But that was just the first 40 years I could blame them. At 40, I took a speed reading test. to see how many words per minute I read because I knew I was incredibly slow. That was one of my frustrations. I used a number of excuses. I didn't have time. I wasn't good at it. But it was all simply because I didn't enjoy it, because I wasn't good at it. But when I read this quote, it hit me, like I said, between the eyes and right in the heart. So I took a test online, and I found out that I read a little over 40 words a minute, which puts me below the 8th grade reading level, depending on which test you take. And boy, you talk about an embarrassment for somebody who had graduated with honors from high school and got his degree and moved on and had a college degree. That's just not the results you want to find on that test. So I made the commitment to start reading. And like I said, this quote hit me right in the eyes and changed me. So these were, now that I look back on, I'll tell you the story in a minute about how I got to become a better reader. But we always start with why we do things. And the first reason I encourage you to do it is because it's the best way to surround yourself with people of excellence. You can't always get Kevin Eastman for a Zoom call. You know, Kyle, you pulled off. That's what we call a free roll, I've learned. You probably free rolled him. You free rolled me. But it's the best chance you have to get around people. I think COVID has learned that we can get closer to people than ever before in ways that we maybe didn't know were possible. But without books and without access to their materials, whether that's a newspaper or a magazine article, you got very little chance. Like, I know there's probably very little chance for me to get close to Michelle Obama, but you can read her book. I didn't get a chance to meet Steve Jobs before he died, although I was in Seattle for a large part of that time. I didn't get to meet him, but you can read his books and you can surround yourself with people of excellence and learn from them, learn from their goods, their bads. Find people that have done things that have a similar background to you, and you can use that as a pathway. The second thing, I think it closes that information gap. That was one of the gaps that Kevin mentioned in his talk, and we all have them. I try not to get into any conversation ever unless I have more information than the people I'm talking to have. I feel like at that point in time I should be listening, but this helps you. Reading will help you close the information gap. You can't read everything, but it's important that you try. You have to be very focused at times. Each year I take one word and really break it down and get into the really have a lot of depth, as Coach mentioned, not width. I try to read everything I can on a topic. Been doing that since now for about 9 years. But it will close that information gap that you are missing with other people that you're competing with and against. And it's only going to come through books. You can talk to people, you can sit on Zooms, but you are going to be limited into what they are willing to share and what they will tell you. The book in itself, when people take the time to write a book, they're going to give it to you everything they've got because they want you to, A, buy the book, and B, buy future books. So they want you to gain value from them. So read to close the information gap with people you're competing against. The third thing is we are all prisoners of our geography. That happens to be the title of a great book that inspired this point right here. And you have to break out from your prison. Where you're born, the zip code that you're born into, the time of the world that you're born into. I'm looking at my little 1-month-old over here practicing his shooting for me. He's got pretty good wrist breakdown right now. He's dreaming. I'm not sure. Can't tell whether he's left-handed or right-handed. But he's born to me and his mom in 2020, which I think we're all going to probably easily put to one of the worst years, our most challenging years that any of us have faced to date. The list of things that have happened in this year are long and powerful, but your prison is your geography, where you were born. The book can pretty much tell you what your religious views are, your socioeconomic background, your political views, your level of education, simply based on who you were born to and where you were born, location-wise. So books help me break out of that. Greenwood, Arkansas is a rural Arkansas town. a bedroom community to the third largest city in the state, but nonetheless a bedroom community, one that at my age we didn't get a chance to go to very often when I was young. Nobody had cars that were reliable enough to make the 20-mile drives. So we grew up in a really small town with the same set of friends, 8 of whom I played golf with on Friday back on our home course. So we busted out of our prison, but we all seem to come back to it from time to time. But you're all faced with that. If you stay living where you're living, you don't read books, you're never going to know what it's like to be in Sweden or Norway or Finland or these places that have already got COVID stopped and have 0 gun deaths. There's never been one. I can't remember whether it was Norway or Sweden, but there's never been a police officer killing in one of those Scandinavian countries. Ever been a police officer kill a citizen. And that just boggles your mind until you've been there. And when you get there, you're looking around like, this is the way it ought to be, and why can't it be that way? And sometimes that's why people that have traveled get frustrated with the things we do as Americans. But books will help you break out of that prison of geography. Then the last thing, times is your experience. We use the word times is around here. We didn't have multiplication tables when I grew up. We called them your times tables. So 9 times 5 is 45. 8 times 5 is 40. I whipped that one out pretty good on Coach a minute ago. So we learned them. We just didn't call them multiplication tables. But your times tables are where books allow your experience to grow and your experiences. You can do things that somebody else did and live through it and decide, how would I have handled that? How would I have handled this situation? What would I have done? How can I learn from other people's experiences? So to me, those are the 4 most important reasons why anybody should ever try to read. The leaders are readers. I agree with that more than ever. I told you I was struggling. I had missed out on 3 what I call dream jobs in about a 3-month period, and thus the frustration. But I do not think it is coincidentally that from the time I started learning to read better, that my career took off. And that's why I say, if I can do this, you can do this too. You've probably got a list of excuses if you're not an avid reader. You don't have time, you don't have the energy, you don't have the money, you're making some excuses for sure. And the only thing I can challenge you to do is, how would you handle it if one of your players gave you an excuse, something like that? Most coaches snap back pretty vehemently and pretty abruptly with a student or a student athlete that has excuses. Well, I hear them all the time from coaches. Coach, I ain't got time for that, man. I do this and I do that. And I'm like, all I'm hearing is I can't. And all I'm thinking is your poor team. And all I'm hoping for is it's a college coach, because we're going to try to get them on the schedule. If you're making excuses, that's exactly what you're doing, is making excuses for not reading. So that same test that I took where I read 40 words a minute, and I decided to make a change in my behavior. It wasn't a habit yet. Obviously, reading wasn't a habit, so I knew I had to change my behavior. So I found a book that I was interested in reading, not something that had been assigned to me. You can get me started. I think the reason I hated reading was because the books, the public school in my prison assigned to me, they weren't fun to read. They weren't good. They weren't enjoyable. So I resisted and became reluctant in doing it, and therefore never learned the skills necessary to be a good reader. So I changed some behaviors. I went out and found an egg timer to start with, and I set it for 1 minute. And I grabbed that book that I was really intrigued reading and started in on it. And I read for 1 minute till that timer went off. I put the book down, put it on top of the egg timer on top of the book, put it on my desk, and made the decision to tomorrow come in and read for 2 minutes. I did that. Then I read for 3 minutes. Then I read for 4 minutes. Then I read for 5, all the way up to for a month, for 30. It was a month with 30 days. It was, I think, May, I guess, or no, I guess it had been, it had been May. And took the test again. And that 40 words a minute, it almost tripled up to 120 words a minute. I felt good about myself. I was at least now up into the high school levels of reading. still not anywhere where I needed to be. So on day 31, rather than read for 31 minutes, I said, today I'm just going to read for 30 minutes again. And I'm going to do this for the next 30 days. I wrote that behavior down. I'm going to, for 30 days, I'm going to make time, find the time, create the time to make sure I get 30 minutes reading. I changed my environment at the house I was living in at the time, found a little quiet place without distractions. It didn't have a plug, so I couldn't take my phone in there, and committed to reading 30 minutes a day. So for the next 31 days, I read for 30 minutes. Didn't miss a day, was very diligent about it and committed to doing it. And it had become a habit because now I'd been reading for 61 days. So I took the same test, and I'm up to about 350 words a minute by that point. And I'm starting to realize I've read like 4 books now because I'm reading faster. I'm not having to go back and reread what I had read the day before. And 61 days in, I felt really good. So, what was the next day going to look like? Rather than give myself a limit, which I had been doing, I had goals, had a goal to read 30 minutes. So I changed my approach, and I said, you know what? I'm just going to read. I shortened my standard down from read 1 minute a day for every day to read 30 minutes a day for 30 days to read every day. And what I found was some days that was for an hour, some days it was 2 hours, some days it was 8 hours, some days it was 8 minutes. But I just put a standard down to read. And after now 90 days, I went back and took that reading comprehension test, and I was over 900 words a minute. It fluctuated between 975 and 925, so my average was like 968. And I had poured through a couple of dozen books in a 90-day period without any special training, without anybody motivating me, inspiring me to do it. It was just something I wanted to get better at. And now I don't read every day. Obviously, you read something every day, but I don't sit down with a book every single day. But I am there is something in my day in which reading is involved. So I tell you, if I can do it, anybody can do it. I'll stop there and see if that brings up any questions. Kyle?
What golf course y'all play in Arkansas, Coach?
If I play every day, there's one right outside I like to play. It's called the Links. There's one at Stonebridge Meadows. If I'm trying to lose a ball on every single shot that I possibly hit, we'll go to the Blessings. It's where they played the NCAA tournament last year. The one, not last year because we didn't have one, but the year before that. It's one of the hardest golf courses I've ever played. You can literally lose a ball on every full swing of the day. And I made a bet with I was driving the carts for the golfers back and forth during the practice rounds. And I made a bet with one of our coaches that somebody would shoot 100 out there. And they were like, these are college golfers. There's nobody going to shoot 100. There were 3 that didn't break 100 in their college golf NCAA championships. So I felt pretty good about the 92 I had fired the week before they started it. But so those are the ones I try to play the most. That's a good question.
Anyone else got any questions?
All right, I'll go back. So the first book, everybody knows I'm an avid lister. I list my top movies of all time, my top TV shows, my top songs, my top Christmas movies, basketball nicknames. I've got a starting 5, second team, third team, and pop culture from basketball for people who played in movies. I've got a couple of coaches on that team. Anyway, I'm a lister. And what I will tell you is there's no possible way I think I can ever list books. I have a criteria to list every single thing else that I've come across. But to me, books are all about reading everything you can, get your hands on, and then decide from there what your best is. Maybe one day I'll be able to. But this is the first book I start with because I wish this had been the first book I had ever read. If I had read this book first, it would have gotten me started off in the right direction. It's a newer book. It's by Ray Dalio. Most of you will probably be like me and read the first 250 pages, maybe 300. The last part of the book is more of a biography, which was interesting, but not as, at the time I was reading it, I was ready to go to work on what he had taught the first 300 pages. But what he talks about in his book is, if you know your guiding principles, and that's, Kevin called them, know your no's, you have to have these done first before you know how to get where you're going. Otherwise, you're starting in the wrong direction. And that prompted me to start to study. This was a conversation Buzz Williams and I had at the Nike trip about 4 years ago, and he's turned it into a great presentation. If you've seen his conversation about going to the moon, you can find it on YouTube. But it all started over a breakfast dinner at the Nike trip. Well, I guess it would be 5 years ago now. But the thing we were talking about was this: if you start on a trip and you're trying to go from point A to point B, and that trip is 100 yards apart, if you start your path off, okay, if you're trying to go in a straight line from point A to point B, and you're 1 degree off at your point of takeoff, okay, at 100 yards, that equals 0.2 inches. So as small as you can imagine, if you're off by that much, after you walk 100 yards, you've missed your target by 5.2 feet, simply by being off by 0.2 inches at your start. And that doesn't seem like too big of a deal. You can say, hey, there's my goal or my standard, what I was trying to achieve. It's right over there. I just barely missed it. Didn't hit the bullseye, but, maybe hitting the green for a 25 if you know darts. So not that significant. Well, if you're trying to go a mile, if that path is a mile away and you start off 0.2 inches off, you miss it by almost 100 feet, 92 feet. So 30 yards, almost 31 yards. You can still see it, but wow, you're a good chip shot away, to keep the golf analogy going. Probably a lob wedge. You got to hit full or something for me, but just by being 0.2 inches off. So continue your for me in Fayetteville, Arkansas, if I'm coming to do a clinic in Dallas and I start off, my GPS isn't working, but I'm going to follow the stars or whatever. And I get 0.2 inches off. I miss it by 6 miles. If I'm going to the moon, I miss it by 4,169 miles. If I'm going to the sun, over 1.5 million miles, you miss it by. So the point being, going back to Ray Dalio's book, the quicker you know what you're after, what you will settle for, your core values or your principles or your tenets or definite dozen, whatever you call it, if you're off by just a little bit as you start, you're going to miss your target. Now with that, obviously you can correct. You can get halfway there and make a correction and get back, but that creates this arc rather than in that straight line. And that's that arc where bad things happen, where you get frustrated, where you almost quit your job to sell drugs, where, you get bitter, no telling what happens in that underneath that line stuff. So I wish I would have started out with Ray Dalio's book, Principles. The next book, Speed of Trust by Stephen Covey. Not ironically, or not coincidentally, Kevin mentioned trust and truth being the number one thing, and it is our number one thing as well. If people don't trust you or trust in you, or you don't trust people or have trust in them, it's never going to work out. And this was the best book. I read 30 or 40 books on trust. That was one of my words, my yearly words. So I read at least 30 books and probably another couple hundred articles and listened to podcasts and YouTubes on it. But without a doubt, if I could just gift you one book on trust, it would be this one. This would be the ultimate book when it comes to trust. Perfect Practice by Doug Lamov, Erica Woolway, and Katie Yeezy. 3 high school teachers who came up with 42 ways for getting better at getting better. We have implemented 18 of these practices into our basketball practice. Last year, I've used 32 of the 42 at some shape, form, or time. Some of them just don't apply to basketball. Otherwise, I think I would have used them all, and maybe I'll find a way to use the other 10. But without a doubt, a book that we've used to implement the most practice strategies that we utilized. Spy the Lie helps you get the most and the best information. 3 former CIA agents got together. One of them was an expert on the polygraph. Another one was an expert on body language. And the other was an expert in micro expressions of the face and word usage. And between the 3 of them, using those methods, they could extract the best and the most information from people. And it's a phenomenal, fun read. It'll walk you through a lot of scandals that you've seen. But this book helps you get information, whether it's with your team and somebody's trying to lie to you or be deceptive. This is the book you need. I caution you in it that sometimes you think you're a little better at it than you are. So don't use it as your final decision maker, but certainly use it to get the best and the most information. Takes me to probably the newest book on this list, Annie Duke. Yes, that Annie Duke. If you watch poker on TV, she's one of the world's best poker players, and she's a brilliant speaker and a brilliant author. This was her first book. She has a new one coming out. But this is where you learn to make decisions without the best and the most information. Very rarely are you going to have all the facts, yet you're going to be asked to make decisions on a daily basis as a head coach or an assistant coach or as a schoolroom teacher or principal, whatever form of leadership you're finding yourself in. But this is where you learn to judge your decisions rather than the outcome of it. And she uses her poker analogies a lot in that, her decision to go in with all aces, or with 2 aces in the hole, if you're playing Texas Hold'em, that's the right decision. But they don't always win. It doesn't always produce the best outcome. And if you do that in your coaching, we all know you should foul when you're up 3 with the shot clock. You should do it. But everybody's afraid to do it. Not everybody. Some people are afraid to do it because, you are bringing in the slight chance that you could lose, even though the overwhelming evidence tells you should be fouling. So this is a book that helps you understand why. Dan and Chip Heath are a set of brothers. One's a professor at Duke and one at Stanford. I think this book is extremely timely because the COVID-19 challenges we're facing, we're all going to have to be adaptive when this comes out, when we're done. We've had to be adaptive during it. And if you think that that's where the adaptation stops, you're wrong. The place we're headed, there's not a book out there to handle specifically. But this tells you the psychology and the science of how people react to change. And your ability to navigate that, the quickest and the best is going to allow you to catch people that maybe have been better than you on the basketball court, or better than you in recruiting, or better than you at player development. You're going to have to understand change, and this is the best book for that. Burn Your Goals. Goals is a word that we have taken out of our vocabulary, our language. I still use it sometimes in talks because I don't end up getting the opportunity to share the full talk about standards. But in brief, this is the book that took our team to the Final Four in 2016. Without this book, we would have been like everybody else and set goals, which that year would have been to go to the Sweet 16 because Washington hadn't advanced that far in decades, and we were not expected to. So the Sweet 16 would have been a great goal for us to have. But it would have also limited us potentially in that the Sweet 16 would have been where we would have ended our season. Instead, when we turned to the standards-driven method, it just became hold each other accountable to the standards that we have set every single day, and let's just see where it takes us. And that ceiling was the Final Four. And I'm telling you with everything in me, we do not do that without having set standards rather than goals. They've written 2 new books since, Chop Wood, Carry Water, that Pound the Stone, and they have a new book coming out called Win in the Dark that you should have on pre-order already if you're a reader, and if you're not a bad place to start. It's not about the shark. Probably the funniest read on this list, very humorous, written from a a doctor named David Niven, and he's going to talk you through how you spend an exorbitant amount of your time worried about the wrong things when it comes to problem solving. And this book will help you along that path. There's a great scene in the movie Moneyball where Brad Pitt keeps hammering the scouts with, you're not looking at the problem. The problem is not replace Giambi, Damon, and they weren't looking at the problem. So fun read, great read. This would be one that I put high on your list when you're looking for a little bit of light humor as well. Here's Kevin's book, Words We Use, and then we have added words we don't use. We've eliminated a number of terminologies from our vocabulary in our program. We don't use the word culture anymore. We certainly don't use the word toughness. Anything that's got multiple definitions. I don't know how many people are on the call, but I guarantee you we would all come up with a different list of things that exhibit toughness. And there's no doubt that our definition for culture could be drastically different. So words that we do use and words that we don't use, like I said, if you don't have Kevin's book, you need to get that thing before his second one comes out so you can get caught up. Insanely Simple is by Ken Siegel, who was Steve Jobs' right-hand man in everything that they did. He got a chance to be surrounded by greatness. And the thing that he talks about is those people's ability to keep things very, very simple. Our game is complex. It's got a lot of moving parts, requires timing and execution and spacing and inspiration. And our game is very complicated, but the people that make it look easy are the people who have learned a way to simplify it. And this is the best book when it comes to that. Again, when you choose a topic, these are all kind of the headings. These are the topic headings. This book will wormhole you down to 10 or 12 other books about simplicity, and you'll find little nuggets in all of them. But this would be the one I would start when it comes to simplifying. This is a 3 series. There's Crucial Conversations, Crucial Confrontations, and Crucial Accountability. And these are all moments you as a leader must win. You must use the right words, and you must confront things, and then you must demand accountability and exhibit accountability. If you want to have any level of success, any level of excellence, every team that has these things have been through these crucial moments. Actually, this is the newest book on the list. James Clear's Atomic Habits. He's making the rounds now on all the YouTubes and TED Talks and London Reels, talking about the habits, the way habits are formed, the way you can break them, the incremental gains of how tiny things can yield to huge results. This will really wormhole you into areas of behaviors and habits. 2019, my word was habits, which I learned I wasted the better part of a year because I really should have been studying behaviors. It's what I've learned from that. So this year's word is behaviors, and I'll let you know what books are best after we finish this year. But you certainly wouldn't be too far behind if you're reading Atomic Habits. Stop right there, and I'll continue to share. But one thing that we have around the office is I'll yell down at my scheduling coach, hey, let's try to schedule so-and-so. And he'll always come down, and sometimes he wonders how I came across that. For example, anybody I see on the internet that has using this year the book Energy Bus as their book of their year, we want to play those guys because that book's about 12 years old. And I'd love to play teams that are 12 years behind us. Now, it's still a great book. John Gordon has made a ton of money really rewriting the same story over and over and over and just changing the location from a soup kitchen to a carpenter's bench to the flower bed to the training room to the bus. He's used the Disney model, and they're all great. You can read them. But if you find yourself, look at the date that the book was published. And if it was published in 2009 and it's not still near the bestsellers list, you've probably got an outdated book. There's new information. There's better information. And that's what we're always constantly in search of. I don't want to be reading the same thing that my opponents are reading. I want to stretch out and I want to find new things. So anything you read is good, but as you get a little deeper, I think you're going to see they're not all books are created equal. Go back to this. Few more books. The 5 languages of love, or the 5 love languages. We all use the word relationships and the value of relationships, and it's all about relationships as we're talking, but most people don't even know what they mean. It's a different definition. You don't know what you're supposed to be doing, and sometimes you're trying to do the right thing. If anybody's read The Languages of Love, you'll know that one of them is acts of service. And in acts of service, that is, hey, I take out the trash, I mow the lawn, I do the dishes, I help pick up the laundry. But if your person that's in your relationship is not an acts of service person, they don't give a shit. They don't care that you're doing all that. They may be a quality time person. So in you're wasting all this quality time by doing all these acts of service, and or they're a words of effect, they're a words of affirmation person, and you're not giving them affirmations. So you have to understand, we have written around our office, we call it the 7 love languages of a basketball coach. And every player, there's about 7 buckets that players need filled. And they need, some of this and some of this and some of this to fill their bucket. And we're trying to get that into a shareable document. But you know the players I'm talking about. They're the players that all thrive better with different types of relationships. This book will help you in that area. Susan Cain's book, Quiet, is about the people that are exactly opposite to me. These are the introverted, the quiet, the shies, are other words for these people. I'm not one of those people, so I don't identify as well with that category of learning styles. So this book will help you. If you're struggling with people they may not be reluctant and they may not be resistant. They may just be quiet. And you have to understand that and get through those days where one of my best players at Washington was a quiet kid. And I thought she hated everything we did. I thought she hated everybody on the team. I thought she hated everything. But she was one of the biggest, kind-hearted players that we had. She just expressed them in different ways. So a good book to help you in that area. This is one of those books that is the outlier to what I just said. This book was published in 1999 and is still near the tops of every bestseller. Anybody that's in a leadership role has this book on their shelf. It's been heavily highlighted. It's been on the reread list that Kevin talked about. And it's on anybody's list of books you need to have. It's very clinical. It's got a lot of thick wording. I had to get a dictionary out and have access to a thesaurus to understand some of the writings, but a book that really digs inside the psychology of success. And even though it's old, one that is still true to this day. These next two, the Captain's Class and Tribe of Mentors, I'll go back and forth between these two. Just find common success of others. This is a book about captains of industry, captains of teams, captains of military. Kevin jokingly about the Navy SEALs have all written books now, and there's great things in each of them. So study what is common to the captains. The Tribe of Mentors is Tim Ferriss. This is a great bathroom book because each mentor, their section is only 2.5 or 3 pages long. And you can see common themes and patterns emerge as you start to read through them. This is the book on the list that has the least to do with sports. It is about General George Patton, written by historians. But this is the book that was the most heavily note-taking book I've ever read. I literally wrote something down, highlighted, underlined, wrote into a notebook, made it into my Welt file. So take it for what it's worth. If you're a history buff, you'll probably like that book even more. So if at the end of this you still have an excuse, if you're saying whatever you're saying, whatever your excuse is, I ask you, will you, if you won't pick up a book and read, or a newspaper article, or a magazine article, or a journal entry, will you at least watch someone read to you? And what I mean by that is, will you go to YouTube and discover Brian Davis from London Real, or TED Talks? I don't even have them up here anymore because they're so ubiquitous with good information. Ask Gary V has an unbelievable YouTube channel. Joe Rogan's may be the best of all of them. It's certainly the most episodes. He's got over 1,200 episodes now. And then Eric Thomas. Those would be the four I would start with. You'll find others. There's the resource that is YouTube is untapped by so many people. You can spend, I watch more YouTube than I do TV now. It will wormhole you. It's one of those deals that you watch something and the next thing you know it says, oh, if you like this, watch this. So of course you click. Oh, if you like this, you'll like this. And that takes you down another whole path. So if you won't read, at least watch somebody read to you. And if you like the long form, watch West Wing. By far the best leadership, 7 seasons of of West Wing. The first 4 are the best 4. The last 3 are just okay because Aaron Sorkin left as writer. But the first 4 seasons are, to me, the best TV ever written, acted, produced, scored, whatever you want to come up with. Cast, unbelievable thing to watch. Watch somebody read to you. 2 other Aaron Sorkin TV shows, The Newsroom. And if you're completely addicted to sports and you can't handle the politics, which I don't even like politics, but I love West Wing. Newsroom, I don't watch the nightly news, but I love Newsroom. So Sports Night is Aaron Sorkin's version of Sports Center. Really, really funny. So 3 things you can watch in the long form. So if you still have an excuse, you won't read, you won't watch somebody read to you, will you at least listen to somebody read to you? Books on tape, podcasts are basically short versions of books. If you're looking for the best $99 I've spent on anything probably in the last 5 years, is the app called Blinkist. It is an online book app that you can either buy daily, weekly, monthly, or yearly. And it will give you a 5 to 10 minute synopsis of every single book that is released to the public. Anyone that anybody's trying to sell anyway. They share their Blinkist with this app, and you click listen to, and it basically gives you the highlights, the Cliff's Notes version of the book. This book is extra valuable to avid readers because it will keep you from buying the crappy ones. We can all get suckered in by a catchy dust cover or a recommendation from another book without really knowing what the book is all about. I've bought some books that had an intriguing book jacket only to get home and learn nothing or very, very little from. So these are the 4 best podcasts that I think are out there right now. Against the Rules by Michael Lewis. He's the author of the book Moneyball, Liar's Poker, The Big Short. Very slanted toward the sports world. Brilliant web or podcast. You can find it on anybody that carries podcasts. The Axe Files with David Axelrod, the widest encompassing podcast that's out there. He interviews people from every walks of life that have found success. I mentioned Tim Ferriss when we talked about his book, Tribe of Mentors. You'll also probably want to get Tools of Titans as you start to read more. But he's got a podcast where he basically interviews all the mentors and titans that you read about. You get them in a setting. Then the last one, I would not miss a day of Tim Elmore's Growing Leaders. I would listen to every podcast he puts out. I would start with the one he just put out and work your way backwards. Don't go back to the beginning, because depending on what level you coach at, you might not be listening to the right stuff. If you're a high school coach, you've probably already – your millennials are gone. That'd be another book I would call Coach Todd about to schedule. If I find a college coach that's reading about millennials still, then I want to play them, because they've graduated the millennials, and they've graduated most of their homelanders, and now they're on to the unfiltereds. And those are all terms. If you don't know Dr. Elmore, you won't understand them, but you should know them. That's the group that is going through elementary school and the middle school right now. Kids that don't even remember 9/11, but grew up in the world around it. Down into now, there's going to be, like I say, I'm looking at this 1-month-old that's going to hear stories about 2020. That's the next generation. You need to stay current with the generation of people that you're coaching. So just for a little fun, if you're listening to a podcast, you need to take a little bit of break. If you haven't discovered the group Blackberry Smoke and you like Southern rock, download them immediately. They are the closest thing to Leonard Skinner since Leonard Skinner. Amazing group, live, even better live. I know there's a lot of Texas people in here. I'm a Texas country, Red Dirt Road, old school. This guy, he's really popular with the ladies because he looks the way he does. But Parker McCollum is I think the hottest thing on its way up, song-wise, that's around. And then the last thing I point you to before we stop is, if you've not been impacted by the Broadway play Hamilton, the musical, if you'd have asked me at 40, would this have been something that was even on my radar, I would have scoffed at you and dismissed you and ridiculed you for even bringing it up to me. But now at 51, I can tell you probably the most powerful piece of writing, acting, music that I've come across in all my 51 years. It is getting ready to come out to Disney Channel on July the 3rd. I encourage you to listen to the soundtrack prior to that. I will tell you that the soundtrack is in chronological order of the way it is acted in the play. So don't skip around as you get going. Listen to it start to finish. It is by far the most played songs on every Apple device I have. I've seen the play now 10 times in 6 or 7 different cities. If you get a chance to see it, it's worth the cost. It's an expensive ticket, but it's worth it. And if you can't do that, at least watch it on the Disney Channel. It'll be different than sitting there live, but you can make it work. So reading, writing, sharing, kind of what it's all about. So we'll stop there. I think we've got a few minutes. I took up most of Kevin's extra time, but see if there's any questions now at the end.
Anyone have any questions for Coach? Coach, I'm actually right in the middle of Principles right now. So it's
ironic.
Yeah, it's a great book, like you said, man. It's really good. So
yeah, if you get through the 300 pages, I think I didn't finish it. I'll admit I didn't finish it. It got, like I said, it got more into the biography, which is intriguing, but I highlighted and utilized a lot of those first 300 pages for sure.
You mentioned that y'all do a 7 love language for your basketball players.
Yeah.
In his book, he talks about the basketball card or baseball cards that they did. Do y'all? I mean, is that something that you tied in or got from that?
It could be. Yeah, we haven't done it with our team yet. I've done it with my staff, and then I sent a bunch of cards out to coaches. I've done it more with people that I feel like I'm colleagues with than with our team yet. But we're working on ways to do it. We're working with our team. We're having our team help us with the behaviors on which bucket to drop those in. You've got kids that are motivated by the accolades, kids that are motivated by the attention, the rewards, the awards. It means a lot to them. You got kids that are statistically driven. You got kids that are more intrinsically driven by being a part of the team. Everybody getting along, having kumbaya sessions, having sleepovers, You're going to be in my wedding. Some people love that. Other people don't. Quality time is one. It's one that overlaps from Gary Chapman's book. Some players just want to hang out with you and get your time, and you talk to them while they're stretching. There's other kids that don't even want me around while they're stretching. So you got to learn everybody's love language, and some of them are, acts of quality time, words of affirmation. What you say to them matters. Other kids you can say anything to, and it doesn't affect it all. But once we get that done, we'll share it. But we're trying to get it down to the fewest number, but we're pretty much stuck on 7 right now.
Anyone else have anything?
Hey, Coach, this is Cleve Ryan from the Colony.
Hey, Cleve.
Appreciate all that you do, and for coaches, and keep doing this, making a difference. So
good, thank you.
You got a lot of stuff here, and a lot of things that whether you're reading, and you still got basketball planning. You got a new edition right back behind you, and
yep.
Life is crazy. What do you do to kind of help you juggle your time? Like, you get up early? Is this, or you stay up late, or or do you just kind of get it done, or do you kind of have a routine? And talking about Coach Eastman talking about being intentional with your time and stuff like that. Where do you how do you kind of juggle all that?
Well, first of all, is making sure you've written down what you have priority to. Manage your priorities to make sure the important things don't get overshadowed by the urgent. Cleve, if you'll remind me, I'll put my email up here in a minute and you can see it, but send me an email later today and I'll send you what I wrote up, that time management for coaches. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I do think everybody's different. I'm not typically a morning person. COVID has changed that a little bit, even more so than a newborn. But I have found that players don't function very well before 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock. 6 a.m. workouts are not a part of our routine. You can build toughness other ways. Everybody always says, it makes you tough. Really, it's probably a convenience thing for somebody. The coach wants to get it over with, or the strength coach wants to get it. Anytime my players go, Coach, we'd like to do it to get it out of the way. I'm like, screw y'all. We're not getting anything out of the way. If that's why you're wanting to do this, no, hell, we're going at 10 p.m. to delve into your time when you'd rather be down on Dixon Street. How about we do it at 10 p.m.? Because the gym's still open and the goals are 10 feet high and the balls are still around. We can practice anytime. So I think the key is this, Cleve. Don't expect to have balance first. All these people that strive for balance, they're wasting their free time by trying to have balance. It does not exist for people that want to be great at something. It just doesn't exist. It's a rhythm. Basketball's a rhythm game, so I think it's only fitting that your time should be managed and your priorities should be managed with a rhythm. The people around you have to understand that you may have 5 or 6 Zooms today, but then later when you don't have, you're going to be intentional of being with them. And it's hard. It's hard for people to understand that, especially people that have never been around a competitive cauldron that is athletics. I will tell you this. I sleep until I wake up most days. I work till I'm hungry, and then I work till I'm sleepy again. Mm-hmm. I try to find opportunities to get away, but to make time. That's what this time management thing will do. Try to save 1 minute in 30 different ways. And I'll give you a couple of examples. This is the only one I ever take credit for. As a bachelor for about 15 years, I was doing my own laundry. And the most frustrating time was when I'd get a load of socks. And I'd be putting this one's got the Nike swoosh on the heel. This one's got on the front heel. This one's on the back heel. This one doesn't have a swoosh at all. This one's a mid-calf. This one's a no-show. Like 27 categories of Nike socks. Mm-hmm. And I'd be trying to find the match, and then shit would be 2 or 3 short, and the washing machine ate them or the dryer ate them, and I'm looking for those. And I was just sitting there one day going, what the hell am I doing? Why do I keep doing the same thing over and over and expect to get better at this. The washing machine eats them. I know it. I still don't know where they go, but they do. I can't prove it yet. So I said, screw it. I took every sock that I had in the laundry that day and threw it out. Then I went to my drawer and got every other sock that I had and tossed it out. And I went down to Academy Sports and I bought 50 pair of the exact same Nike sock. Okay? So now on laundry day, dumped it in and dumped it back in the drawer. So that day, on laundry day, I saved myself at least 10 or 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So then I started writing down, and I started researching how some other ways I can save 1 minute at a time. When you go someplace, park in the first spot you see. Don't drive around for 45 seconds to find a spot 4 spots closer.
Mm-hmm.
If you would have just parked in the first damn one you saw and got out and walked in, you're going to save 45 to a minute. There's another minute I got that you don't have, or that somebody else didn't have, because they didn't think about that. They weren't intentional about that. Try to touch everything once. If you eat on a plate, when you're done, rinse it off, put it in the sink, or put it wherever it's supposed to go. Don't touch that plate 3 different times for it to get where it needs to go. Develop that organizational system that we talked about. Figure out what's important to you. The things, we call them gaffes. I don't know anybody in here on a Christian school, college. Is it okay if I use the F word? But things you give a fuck about. I didn't put that book on there, but Mark Monson's The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck is one of the best books I've ever read. What do you care about? And make sure those are piles. And if you get 1% better in 30 areas, now you've saved 30 minutes. If you save 1 minute in 30 areas, and not all of them come up on an everyday basis. I have a copy and paste file in my email account. After doing this Zoom, I fully suspect y'all will email me for Trust, Talent, and Time, my green light books on my shelf. I've already got that email saved and done. I will copy and paste it. If you say something to me personal, I'll copy paste it and then go at the beginning and say, great being on that Zoom with you on Monday morning. Good luck down at the Colony. Been through there a few times. I'm dying right now to try to remember the kid's name. Did Rachel Rentschler play at the Colony?
No, sir.
She did?
Nope.
Wonder where did she play? She was in that area. Where is Diane? Who's the girls' coach? Are you the girls' coach?
No, I'm boys coach.
Who's the girls' coach?
Colby Pastusik for Davis.
Did Diane Sager coach in that area? Are you in Dallas or in Houston?
Dallas.
Huh. I'm gonna have to go back and look. You've got me. You got me going through my old memories back here. But anyway,
So
when
I send you an email, I'll ask that. So,
there you go. I'll have found the answer by then. I'm almost sure Rachel Rentschler that went to Texas played at the Colony, but I could be wrong. Anyway, going back to your question, there's not, and I'm not married to the list. I mean, I use these, and I'm a checklister. These are in order, and I put boxes and I check them off. And like yesterday, I didn't have anything on my to-do list, so I went back and I wrote everything that I did do, and then I checked the box off. And then that goes in the yearly box, which becomes my time capsule kind of. I can go back and tell you what I was doing on the day that this shit started, March 16th, and go back and look. That's when I started doing this. I can take you all the way through COVID with my index cards. And that book, that'll go in this time capsule, and that'll go there. This is my urgent, important. Everybody thinks I'm a contractor when they see me show up with this thing, but it keeps things organized. I keep a running list of the SEC schools that we beat this year. I still haven't learned how to do this. I'm never going to be a weatherman. God dang it! How can I not figure this out?
There you go.
There you go. Oh, it's opposite on the screen. Anyway, find out what works for you. Take the ridicule. People laugh at me all the time. Every day somebody laughs at me. Where are you going, engineer? Whatever. You building? What are you building today, coach? It's okay. Organize the way you need to organize, but have a plan. and be able to explain that plan to somebody really quickly. I know a lot of people who spend valuable time writing in a day runner or planning their day, and then they don't ever reap the rewards of that plan. So find out what works for you, stick to it, tweak it, but it's got to be yours. You can't take my ideas and make them yours. You can use them and then adapt them. A friend of mine, a high school coach, if y'all don't follow Greg White, he's a high school coach in the Northwest Arkansas area. He's very active on Twitter. He's a Snow Valley USA basketball guy. He'll be coaching one of our Olympic preparation teams in the near future because of the connections he's made. His system's a lot different than mine, but it works for him. So find it, adapt it. But he's the one that changed the word stole. We all steal, from each other. But you can't steal the exact same thing. You have to steal the idea and then adapt it to yours. That's called the Facebook effect. There was a lot of social media sites out before Facebook. Y'all are probably not old enough to have had a MySpace page, but I had a very active MySpace page, and I felt like I was writing computer code on what you had to get to dump in there to get it to play a damn song when people logged on. But they took the idea and just made it better. They adapted the idea, and that's called the Facebook effect. You got to have the Facebook effect on these things. We share all those drills that you mentioned on YouTube, and the thing I like best is when somebody will take the time to email me back and say, "Hey, Coach, we did quick strike the other day, and we accidentally stumbled onto this little nugget. You might try it." So you adapt and you change and you evolve. And I think that's the key to it all, Cleve, is finding what works for you, getting a system, figuring out what you care about, and then being very diligent to confront anything that gets in the way of that.
Thank you.
You bet.
Anyone else have anything?
Hey, Coach, this is David Peeler. I'm another high school coach here in Dallas, and actually getting ready to go Highland Park.
Highland Park, okay.
Very well respected coach in Dallas area.
Yeah, thanks, Cleve. Hey, I was going to let you know we're getting ready to go do a workout here in about 30 minutes, and just wanted to thank you. I've stolen so many of your shooting drills.
Good.
And looking down on my list, green light Celtic, we actually call it Razorback.
Okay.
I think you call it plus one. Is that the plus one where our players love that one? Yes, but very, very grateful to you for how you give them back to the game. And I know in the past, I had a thumb drive. I emailed you back at University of Washington. Do you still give a flash drive that you'll put all your drills and these lists on and send back to us? Is that still enough for that you give?
It is, but don't use a jump drive because it's gotten too big. Send me spend $50 and get a terabyte. They're about $50 a byte now, terabyte.
Mm-hmm.
You can get them at Walmart. They're Passports as one company. That's the one I use. They're probably the most user friendly. They look like this. One of these little things, external hard drives. It also will back up everything you do.
Mm-hmm.
But if you'll send that to our address now, here is 1201. Here, I'll type it in the chat. Let me type that in the chat for everybody because sometimes I spell. I didn't know what a terabyte was until I asked. So just ask for a 2 terabyte. drive. What we'll send you is over 800 hours now of video of our practices, the championship videos that I've done. I'll put on there for you as well. I hate charging for those, but the guy that signed us up for them charges for them. I'll give it to you for free. But yes, we'll send everything back to you. The one thing you do now have to send me back the mailing postage. A fellow, former really good friend, fellow colleague turned us in for illegal recruiting, said that, he had heard that we would send these out to you, and sometimes we'd pay for the postage if people forgot to put it in there, and that's an NCAA violation. Believe it or not, that $2.18 came between me and a lifelong friendship because we got one recruit that they really wanted. But that's a different story. But yeah, if you'll send it to that address, give us, now that we're out with COVID, it may take as long as a month to get back to you. Jeff is sitting on about 60 to 70 of these already, I know, at the office. So, but be more than happy to send it. Or if you ever make a trip up this way, a lot of people come to practices. We'll make sure you bring one of those, and we can do it during the course of a practice. Hey, Dave, as you get down, there's a new drill. I heard on a shooting or on a Zoom the other day. I don't know what we're going to call it yet, but you put 1 minute on the clock, and they have to make 11 threes, and they have to move to a different spot. It's kind of like the N1 shooting, but they have to, every time they shoot, they got to go to a different spot, make or miss. And they have to make 11 threes in that 1 minute. All right. When they're done with that, boom. If they make 11, then they get to advance to round 2. And in between round 1 and round 2, they shoot a free throw. If they make the free throw, the next round they have 2 minutes to make 22 threes. So twice as long on time, twice as many makes. If they'd have missed that free throw in between, that goes to their total. So now they got to make 23 in round 2. Okay? 2 minutes. I don't really care how many balls you have or what you're doing, but just keep it consistent between your shooters so that they've got the same advantage that they're whoever they're competing against has. If they do, they shoot 2 free throws in between. Make them. Next round is 33 makes in 3 minutes. If they missed those 2 free throws, you add those to that total for 35, and it gets harder and harder and harder. And I'm really looking forward to that. That'll be the first new shooting drill we've added to our green light shooting package in a few years. But I know our players will love it because it's the same skill, it's the same shots. We're just scoring it in a different way, and it's a great conditioner. I've got 5 or 6 shooters in mind that I can't wait to get on the floor to see how they do with it. And all those came from coaching Plum those 4 years because she didn't want to do the same drill more than a week. Boy, after about a week, she'd be like, "Coach, can't you come up with something new?" So we scoured people's and tweaked and made them our own. But she still drives me to this day, and she just tore her Achilles tendon in preparation for the WNBA season. She's devastated. She was battling for that last spot on the Olympic team. But the silver lining is she's going to come here for her rehab. So we're going to have her on our campus with our kids for a large part of her rehab. So I suspect that by the end of this calendar year, Dave, we're going to have a green light shooting part 2 for sure. So, and if y'all ever have a good one, please write it up, screenshot it, email it to me. Let me give you all those. Let me give you my numbers in this chat. This is my cell. Text me if you need something immediately. My email address, email me if you need something, relatively quickly, maybe within the month. And then if you want something sometime that year, write me a letter. These are the ones I'm catching up from last week. I have made a point to return all emails. I'm cleaning out my email box during this COVID. and I returned an email yesterday that was 3 years old. So I wasn't very timely. My feedback loop was, but I returned it. They're never going to be able to say it was so. The person replied was so nice. Like, had asked me, "Hey, coach, we got a big game coming up. We got a sideline play." So obviously, I said, "Well, hopefully you won that game and you didn't need a sideline play." Because he said, "Well, coach, ironically, I've had 3 jobs since then, but I might need one this year." So, I will return them, but that phone number, I usually return those by the end of the day, if not before the next day's over. So don't hesitate to text me. If you got a late drive around there, let me know. We're going to be in the Dallas area. We opened down there at SMU on November that 5th, I think. It's a Tuesday. The first full week of the – hopefully if we all get to play our games. But we'll be down there in Dallas playing at SMU to open the season.
There is a girl from the colony at SMU though. That's so.
Who's that?
So you asked me that.
See, I stumped you.
Tamia Jones.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. Then we had a girl go to Wake Forest this year also. Spear. Jewel Spear.
Jewel Spear. Yeah, Jewel. We messed around with her a little bit early on. Neat kid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Coach, my youngest, I've got 4 children. My youngest will be
Maybe you're cutting out. Is he cutting out to everybody else, or is it just me?
No, me too.
Sound like Charlie Brown's teacher a little bit. Now I got you.
I said my son's going to be a sophomore at University of Arkansas. He's transferring, so when I go see him, I'll be stopping by your office or
use that cell number. Come by
for sure.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, sounds good. Look forward to it.
I appreciate you being here. I can't believe there's only 7. Yeah, only 7 coaches on this. They're missing out.
It's all right. I've done them for 700, and I've done them for 7, and it doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter to me. Usually the ones that are for 7 or 8. I love the ones that start at 9 p.m.